Hey guys, welcome back to Philip Draws Comics. I'm Philip. That's my hand you see on the screen right now, drawing the picture in front of you. And today, in anticipation of the release of the trailer for James Gunn's new Superman movie, we're going to be drawing David Corenswet, the actor playing Superman, as a comic book character. Or at least we're going to try. Because I'm not going to lie to you, this particular drawing, this series of drawings, really kind of kicked my ass. I had this idea to draw, basically to recreate the classic Neil Adams Superman busting through chains cover from the start of the Kryptonite Nevermore arc in the 70s that helped reinvent the character and move him away from the Mort Weisinger Silver Age era and planted Superman firmly in the Bronze Age. And overall, I think I did a pretty solid job with this attempt. The problem came a little later as I went back to look at it and was like, that's a little juvenile. I could probably do better. And so then I spent the rest of the day trying to draw like different, more complex versions of this image. And eventually like going crazier and crazier, getting angrier and more frustrated. And so today's video is going to be less about the James Gunn Superman trailer, and it's going to be more about the concept of failure. Specifically failure as we judge it in relation to ourselves, and sometimes the high expectations we put on ourselves when we're trying to accomplish things that are a little outside of our skill range. Before we get into all that, let's actually talk about Superman for a minute. The new James Gunn Superman trailer is going to drop later today. It's an interesting thing, having been a Superman fan for so many years, and specifically remembering going and seeing the first Zack Snyder DC movie, the Man of Steel, at the box office, at the theater. And then it came out the same summer as Guardians of the Galaxy, directed by James Gunn, starring a whole bunch of nobody Marvel characters. And then that movie getting more critical acclaim and reaching greater heights at the box office than Superman. That was I remember being discouraged by that. I'm somebody who doesn't necessarily need, the things he likes to be super popular, but I like it. It's just nice when everyone's into the same thing you are, and you can kind of enjoy the community aspect of it's like sports. It's when your team is winning, when your team wins the national championship, it's a good feeling. And so having been a DC fan and a Superman fan for so many years, watching, people be very derisive about the things DC was coming out with for the last 10 plus years has been kind of a bummer. But specifically, that's just theater. Movies and what have you, the TV shows and cartoons and sometimes even the comics are generally pretty well lauded. Everybody likes that stuff. It's just been so strange to see DC or Warner Brothers maybe just trip over their feet time after time after time trying to keep up with Marvel. And here we are with this newest attempt, getting James Gunn, the guy that directed the movie that beat Man of Steel, to come in and direct a Superman movie. From what I've seen, it looks like it's going to be up my alley in terms of Superman content I like. But the cynical part of me can't help but remember them firing Zack Snyder and hiring Joss Whedon, who directed the first two Avengers movies, to come in and fix the Justice League movie and that weird Frankenstein monster of a movie that they released. And I guess we're shocked that nobody liked. So much so when they finally released the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League. I think it was like the highest grossing DVD, sales for a really long time. It's 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 definitely a better movie than, I mean, of course, any functional movie created by one person is going to be better than some mishmash put together by that's basically, you could have called that movie Justice League studio interference. There's probably a good joke in there somewhere about what's the real enemy of what's the real like worst enemy of DC Comics or DC Studios. It's not Lex Luthor or Darkseid, it's studio interference. But it is, as much as this new movie looks interesting, it is still kind of disheartening to see DC and Warner's still trying to catch up to Marvel when Marvel, it's like Marvel has already won the race, gotten the gold medal, gone home and gone to sleep, and DC is still at Foot Locker trying on shoes to go to the race. It's like the race is over. You've already lost, I'm afraid. I always get the sense that nobody at Warner Brothers really wanted to make superhero movies. They just saw Marvel making all the superhero movies and making $1 billion, and they were like, well, hell, we have the IP for superheroes. Like why are like, but nobody really had a drive or a desire to make the kind of superhero movies that could compete with Marvel movies. And that said, I was actually a big fan of the Zack Snyder movies. I remember specifically Batman versus Superman coming out the same summer as Captain America: Civil War. And so these two movies that kind of have similar premises. It's Iron Man versus Captain America and Batman versus Superman. And I remember distinctly liking Batman versus Superman better than Civil War. Like, I can understand why someone would think that Civil War was like a better movie, a more functional movie, a more put together, competent movie. But I didn't feel as much watching Civil War as I did watching Batman versus Superman. I distinctly remember walking out of the theater, having seen Batman versus Superman, and getting in the car and driving past the local bookstore. And I pulled into the bookstore and went to the comic section, and I was like, I already own 1 million Superman and Batman comics, but I was so keyed up because I liked Batman versus Superman so much. I bought the first volume. I bought Injustice Year One, which felt, thematically accurate. If you're like, I'm really into Batman versus Superman by Zack Snyder, what can I read that would feel like a comic book version of that? Go get Injustice Year One. It's based off the video game of the same name, and it's Batman versus Superman, the comic book, and the Year One is really good. I really loved it, but then I remember a week or two or however long it was later that Civil War came out, and I went and saw it at the movie theater and was like, that was good. And then as I drove past the comic book store, I was like, do I want to go in and buy a Marvel book? And I thought about it, and I'm like, not really. It's like Civil War was good, but it didn't. It was fine, but it didn't like stir up feelings inside me. It didn't make me want to go and buy more Marvel comics. For some reason, for the longest time for me, Marvel, my appreciation for the Marvel Cinematic Universe did not transfer to comics. I can remember distinctly watching the first Captain America movie and in theaters, and the movie ends, and he wakes up, and you don't know what happened to Peggy. He's been asleep for 70 years, and I remember thinking, God, I really, really want to see what happens next. And then having like an urge to go buy a bunch of Captain America comics, but then stopping myself and going like, but it's not the same guy, like, no, Captain America comic I wanted to continue the story of the Chris Evans Captain America character. I wanted to see what happened next with him. So the comics weren't going to get that job done. But for some reason, with DC, that's never been a problem with me. I can transfer, I can watch, I'll watch this trailer for the James Gunn Superman, and it might get me all fired up, and then I'll go, pop in the first season of Superman and Lois, or the first season of Lois and Clark, or the first season of the George Reeves Superman show, or the first season of Smallville, and it'll transfer. Like, I think something about DC characters are more iconic, at least in my mind. I always kind of equate them to like Greek myths or the Knights of the Round Table, like different versions of the story of King Arthur, like the characters are all the same, but the events are different. The Lancelot of the movie Excalibur is not the same as the Lancelot from the Sam Neill Merlin movie. But to my mind, it's easier to kind of see all these different iterations of DC characters. And I guess in my head, I build my own personal canon out of like, I cherry pick the things I like from the various iterations of Superman. And in my head, there is a sort of like platonic ideal of Superman that is constantly being fed with the things I like from all the different iterations that come out, and the things that I don't like about them. It's like, that's okay. That just, that stays on the cutting room floor, so to speak. But here we are in the midst of this second drawing, and I don't know if you've ever tried to do something you've done a million times before, and for whatever reason just find that you can't do it. Like someone flipped a switch in your head, and you just, like a car that the engine's just not getting any gasoline. I've drawn faces a million times, and God help me, no matter what I did for this second drawing of Superman, I just could not get that face right. It was literally like, it was like being 12 years old and trying to draw a face again. Like, I've drawn faces a million times. I know how to draw faces. Like, why am I doing such a crappy job on this? But yeah, the face on this was really what let me down. The rest of it's not too bad. I actually, as it goes along, I really like how I did the chains and how I kind of positioned them so that the composition kind of like, it really looks like they're busting off of him. And I like the way the cape ended up being, twisted to one side. I thought the composition on this image was really good. I just couldn't get the face right to save my life. If I was a better writer or a better like speech giver, I would draw some thematic connection between like my inability to get this Superman drawing right and Warner Brothers' consistent inability to get their DC superhero IP right. Maybe there is some connection there, some lesson to be learned from your own inability to, like, for example, I wasn't necessarily, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't all keyed up to draw Superman. I just knew the James Gunn trailer was coming out, and I was like, oh, what would be cool is a little bit of synergy. Let's draw James Gunn's Superman, and then we'll put it on YouTube the same time as the trailer drops, and hopefully that'll boost views. And so I spent the day kind of chasing that dragon down the road and never quite catching it. And maybe there's a lesson there to be learned for myself about maybe the dangers of not following the muse and sort of chasing, let's call it trends or something. There again, too, feels like fairly specific to Warner's and their work on the DC movie properties. I don't know that anybody over there has a distinct vision so much as they're just chasing Marvel's success, and they're trying to copy it any which way they can. I mean, aside from the face, I think the rest of this drawing's pretty well. The colors look good. I like the shading and everything I did, and I just wish I had done a better job on that face. I almost want to go and try to draw another face on a piece of paper, and then cut it out and glue it on top of this one, because the rest of the drawing doesn't look too bad. I started this channel with a desire to get better at drawing, I went into it with a mindset of like, I don't think I know how to draw very well. So I'm going to draw every day and force myself to draw and get better at it. And I think as the channel has gone along, I've really surprised myself. Like, I am actually better at this than I was giving myself credit for. And that's a really good feeling. And as the videos have gone on, I've gotten incrementally more adventurous with the things I draw. But I think today, with this series of drawings, I think I set my bar too high, and I consistently, didn't make the grade as it stands. And so then here's the final attempt. I gave up on the trying to draw him busting out of chains, and just, I was like, can I draw anything today that I'm pleased with? And so I took this particular photo of David Corenswet as Superman, and just decided to just draw that just flat, just try to copy the image one for one. Again, it's not too bad, but just the face, I don't know, something. I was cursed when I was doing this yesterday. I just could not draw faces to save my life. Makes me want to get on YouTube and look up a million drawings on how to draw faces. Just spend the next month just level grinding on drawing faces over and over again, because I think I've got bodies down pretty well, and I can do passable hands. I think my colors and rendering are not too bad, but it's just something about faces. I just need to spend the next 2 months just drawing nothing but faces to break whatever bad mojo I've got going on. From what I've read about James Gunn's attempt on this new Superman movie, it seems like he's doing a similar thing. He's going back to basics. I've always said the problem Warner's and all these other studios have about trying to build their cinematic universes is that they're trying to build cinematic universes, and they're not really that concerned with making good individual movies. And some of the interviews I've seen with James Gunn, it seems like that's what he's trying to do with the Superman movie. He's just trying to do a good superhero movie, and not cram in a trillion cameos and basically make this movie a commercial for the next 62 movies that are coming out. That said, this movie seems to have an overabundance of superhero characters. I think that's on purpose. I think James Gunn described this movie as like Top Gun, but with superheroes. So the idea, of Superman's Tom Cruise's character from Top Gun, and the other superheroes are just other fighter pilots. So there's some sense being made there, I suppose. Although I will go to my grave not understanding how people have spent the last 10, 15 years clamoring for Nathan Fillion to be cast as Green Lantern. And they finally do it, and they cast him as the wrong damn Green Lantern. How do you cast Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner instead of Hal Jordan? What the hell? But thanks so much for watching, guys, and for listening to me ramble as I talk about Superman and failure and what have you. Be sure to like and subscribe. Come back next time, and hopefully I'll have got back on my feet again and be producing more work that I'm proud of.